What's up, guys? I'm Claymore, and today I'm going to be continuing my experiment with drawing in black and white and then bringing it into color using layer blending options and different styles and everything. And I wanted to know exactly what some of the different styles did reacting to black and white and colors that already exist. So I've laid out this grid. Each one of these is going to end up being a different layer blending style, and so I have a gradient, I have the three primary colors, and like a fleshy tone, and I'm going to be experimenting with it using the three primary colors as like an overlay or a multiply or things like that. So the first one we're going to be going into is multiply. I am going to be using a red tone to start this off. So you can see as I draw on it, I don't have a layer blending style in yet, but it is just solid red. But if I go in and I add the multiply blending style, now it's changed. And this is interesting because it's made the blue nearly invisible, brightened the red, and basically these last three are almost indistinguishable. Now let's go ahead and try the blue, right? Then we can switch that to multiply. And once again, it's an interesting result. It basically completely gets rid of the red. Obviously the yellow turns into like a light green. The flesh tone, oh, it takes it pretty well. I think the flesh tone takes it pretty well, but it's definitely a different result from the red. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the yellow. I mean, it didn't really change the yellow. It like darkened it a little bit. It didn't do anything to the red. Obviously we got a green similar to the green in the blue. That's probably because they are the same blue and yellow mixture. So we're definitely getting some interesting results here, but I'm going to move down to the next set, which overlay. So we're going to be using the overlay blending option for this, and hit overlay. Now see that this is a bit more interesting because before, right, in the gradient, it took that stark white and it completely saturated it, which ends up taking away the highlights. But the overlay, it keeps that black and that white with a red gradient in between. That's good information to know. That means if you have really stark highlights in an image, you don't want to use multiply. You want to use overlay or possibly one of these other three that we're using. But overlay for this instance is definitely better than multiply. Multiply gives you very wholesome colors. It does desaturate the colors a little bit. Overlay keeps those really darks and really lights, but if you don't want white to remain, there's two ways you could fix it. Either you don't use white in the black and white image, or you don't use overlay. So let's go ahead and take a look at the blue here. Switch that layer to overlay. And once again, it still preserves the black and white in the gradient. But you can also see you get a lot more color variation out of the three primaries and the skin tone. They don't just like completely disappear into black. So that's also good to know that your colors are safe with overlay, at least relatively safe. Let's go ahead and move on to yellow now. I'm actually really liking the way overlay preserves the colors. The only thing I don't like is you can see right here in the middle of this blue, you see like this stark line. I've been calling those halos, and that's what happens when you use perfect black and perfect white. So like all the way black and all the way white, when they mix, it's happened on all three of these. It makes like this halo effect, and I've found that if you use perfect white in a piece and use overlay to color over it, it definitely does this consistently. So that's something that you may want to think about. So I'd say that's one of the downfalls with overlay that I'm seeing so far. But let's go ahead and move on to the next one, which is color dodge. So we'll take this red and completely color it in and use color dodge. So that completely took out our black side, but it did keep the white, and it didn't create the halo effect, which is nice. I like that. So that means you may have to go in afterward and add some darker shades on top of this, but so it doesn't preserve your shadows or anything, but it does preserve your midtones and highlights, which is another thing that's good to know. Now, it turned the blue into a purple, which is expected. It's like a pinkish purple, because it took all the dark tones out, so it almost just leaves it like a pink. The red wasn't affected at all. The yellow was slightly affected. It's kind of a little bit more orange on my screen now. And the skin tone was warmed up a little bit. But overall, it didn't affect these three final colors all that much, but the blue was definitely affected. So it seems like this one takes the darker tones out and replaces them with like a mid-tone. So let's go ahead and try blue then. So this is definitely a different effect from the other two blues that we had. This actually almost turned it into like a lavender purplish blue, and it kept the black. It cooled down the flesh tone a little bit, but all of the other three colors are basically exactly the same. But let's go ahead and try and see what yellow does. Okay, I see where I messed up, because now yellow has very similar effects to blue, and I went back to my red, and it actually was screen. It was on screen, not color dodge. So if I switch that, okay, so now they're consistent. So take back what I said before. Now they're consistent. They don't really interrupt the primary colors too much. It turned this yellow a little bit green. This yellow is fine. This yellow is a little orange. It turned this red to a little bit of a purple, but overall it didn't really affect the colors. So next on the line is lighter color, and I'm going to get my standard red that I've been using, and we'll give this a shot. I don't really know what to expect. That's kind of why I'm doing this, because I don't like the idea of just constantly flipping through the layer blending styles and seeing which one works best every time you want to add a new layer. I would like some kind of grid that shows me exactly the effects that it has, and that's why I'm doing this. Lighter color. Ooh. That is straight. Yeah, that's weird. It turned the black into red, and then the rest is just black, or is just grayscale. Interesting. But let's try blue. Let's see if it's consistent in that nature. Lighter color. Yeah, so it's interesting. It doesn't go all the way across. It only covers the black. So maybe it's trying to take all of the dark tones and bring them into the color that you do, and leave all the light tones that you already have existing. Let's try it again with yellow. Actually, now that I look at it, the blue took up less black. Okay, I think I know what's going on. So the value of the color that I use is linear to a gradient scale, right? And so what I'm thinking is happening is when I added this red, it went over on the gradient scale and chose the equal and above and kept it, and everything below it, it removed. So this blue was slightly darker in value than the red, so it took less black away. And then the yellow, it has higher value than the red and blue, so it took more of the grayscale away and kept this really light gray and white. And it also, this is the only one that really messed with the other colors. Actually, no, that's not true. The red messed with the blue, because the blue was a lower value than the red. I don't really know how I could apply this, but that's good information to know, and I'm happy it's on here, because you never know when you might need something like that. So this last one on the list of mine is darker color, and I'm going to go through the same process of using the red first and then selecting darker color. Okay, so that's the exact opposite of lighter color. So it takes all of the values that are lighter than the red and changes them to red. So I can assume that these are going to react the same. I don't really know how I would apply that. Unless you were doing like color removal, might work for that. Or if you wanted to subtract one color for another, those would probably be useful. So as for painting, I think I'm going to add a couple more grids because there's a couple other ones I would like to try. Now that I've done this, I'm not completely satisfied with the information I've gathered from this, and I want to have a few more test panels to work off of. So I'm going to go ahead and get that set up, and we will continue this little experiment. So I've added a control so that when you look at this, you'll know what everything looked like beforehand. And the next one on the list is color. I have high hopes for this one. So once again, we will go ahead and grab our red. So that completely changed everything to a warm scale. It didn't even really make all that strong of a purple in the blue. It just completely changed the blue into more of a reddish tone. But it did preserve the highlights and lowlights while changing everything red. So that's good to know, because in black and white, this acts very similar to color dodge, except color dodge preserves other colors, and this one takes away most of all other colors. So once again, it just changes everything to a bluish tone. So the next one on the list, and the final one, is color burn. And as usual, I'm gonna go ahead and saturate this completely red, and let's see how that looks. It completely got rid of the blue, but it did change these to roughly the same shade of red. So where I believe it was color dodge and color burn, because I believe they're talking about the dodge and burn tool, they do have very different effects. Where I guess this one accentuated the white more, this one accentuates the black more. I don't know. Let's go ahead and take a look at the blue. Maybe it'll shed some light on it. It definitely does its best to bring the highlights down, but there's this divide right here. I don't really like that inconsistency. Let's see if it does the same thing on the yellow. So this one feels a bit more consistent. It feels much more like the red, but overall, as a layer blending style, I don't feel like I would use this one for everyday use. It feels consistent enough. I think color is going to work really well. Color dodge and overlay as well. I think those three are the best in this list. Multiply isn't bad, but it dulls down the highlights so much that you'd have to go back over top of them and add more highlights. So anyway, I hope you guys learned a little bit about like layer blending styles and more about this this technique that I'm trying to perfect. And this grid will be available for download down in the description if you want to use it yourself and experiment with other blending styles. That's completely up to you. It's all laid out in Photoshop. So be my guest. If you discover anything really cool about this, go ahead and let me know, because any information that we can get on layer blending styles is good information, because you never know when you'll need it. And I'm glad I did this, because now I know that like which ones will probably work and which ones won't. I think the most surprising ones to me were the lighter color and darker color. The fact that it's almost like it removes the darks and lights and just slaps in the color, and then leaves the rest untouched. So that was interesting to me. But thanks guys for watching, and I hope you learned something and enjoyed this, and until next time, I'll see you later. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, then don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more. If you want to come watch me live, then join me on my Twitch channel. You can also follow me on my Twitter to chat and get frequent updates. So until next time, have a good one.